Slicha. Today, after Yontif, the Yaakov Halach Darkoi, and start going back to normal life, Mashiv Ruach, where Geshem, Mashiv Ruach, the month of Tishrei is full of Ruchnis, now we have to settle down with the Gashmis and take Oispak and Al Teklach that we accumulated during the month of Tishrei. One of the things that comes to mind is the story that the Tzaddik once asked Al Rebbe, I think, what now? After Yom Kippur, after the whole day of doing Tshuva, what's Yom Kippur? What's the Avodah now? Or I think it was the Frierdiker Rebbe that asked the Rebbe Rashab. And the Rebbe Rashab responded by saying, Eresh, yes, Gafrin Eresh Tshuva time. So now that we spent a week or more, the halachas of Sukkot, and people are mahaded to have a hodor, that's with Mahudar, the Galad Minim, now we have to see what halachas come after the fact. What happens? Uispakni, everything we know, everything we accomplished. How do we deal with the minim and the mitzvahs that we spent such precious time with over the last couple of weeks? So I put 7 things on the board. The Fanei Sukkah, the walls of the Sukkah, the Schach, the Lulav, the Hadassim, the Arabas, the Esrei, the Nois Sukkah, and the Arabah Shalei Shainis. 8 things. 8 things I put on the board. Now that we're unpacking, we're packing everything of Sukkahs away, what halachas are there connected with the packing of these things away? L'shana haba aleinu l'toiva. So I just summarized it by telling you where in Shulchan Aruch it's mentioned clearly. There's a lot of hoopla people say and people think, and I quoted exactly where it's mentioned, so you should know that there's a discussion. And there's 2 general rules that you have to remember. Yes, many of these things are a mitzvah, and some of these things are perhaps only a hechsher mitzvah, or a tashmishe mitzvah. As we'll see, that there is a big difference between the walls of the sukkah and the schach. The schach makes up the sukkah. Schach is what, with that you fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah. U'b'chein, during Yom Tov, it is actually asur min ha-Torah. It's a Gzera Shabbat, you learn it out from the Chag, just like a carbon Chavika is asur b'hana. So the schach is asur b'hana min ha-Torah. The walls are only asur min the during sukkah. Now, there are some things that have more stricter category as it's the mitzvah itself, and some of this list is a tashmishal mitzvah, which obviously has a lower or less level of kedusha. But at the same time, you have to remember 2 general principles. Number 1 is, as it's mentioned similarly to this in Hilchos Tzitzis, the Alter Rebbe says in Erechaim Siman Chav Aleph, if Aleph Gimel, the Alter Rebbe talks about a tzitzis, a baggage of tzitzis that became worn or old or ripped. So even though it also only has the rule of tashmishal mitzvah, still you shouldn't do a tashmishal bizayin with it. So anything that you've done a mitzvah with, it is not proper to do even though the mitzvah was done and it's over, a tashmishal bizayin, an embarrassing thing, a disrespectful thing with this, being that a mitzvah, a halakha thing was done with it, it's preferably not to be done. It should not be done. That's one principle that you have to remember. The second principle, on the positive side, is you have to remember that yes, being that a mitzvah was done with these items, preferably it is, please add another mitzvah to this. Once one mitzvah was done with this item, try to do a second mitzvah with it. So now that we have those 2 principles in mind, I'm quoting what it clearly says in Shulchan Aruch in different places about these 8 items. So I told you there's a difference between the Dafnes HaSukkah, which is a lower level, which doesn't make up the Sukkah, the mitzvah, and the Schach. The Schach is much, much stricter. So concerning the Schach, the Alter Rebbe writes in Siman Tov Reish Lamed Ches if your test. The Alter Rebbe writes, Ate HaTchach, the branches of the Schach, after Yom Tov is over. Remember, there's a big difference between during Yom Tov, during the time of the mitzvah, when then it's also Hana, and perhaps not Torah, to after Yom Tov. Now it's not a mitzvah anymore. Still, says the Alter Rebbe, Apple Pisha Torah L'Gainzam, even though you do not have to hide them, put them away in a very secure place as a kedusha, and perhaps mutal estabik mehem, you're even allowed to use them for whatever you need. In Kolmakin says the Alter Rebbe, nevertheless, nachon lizar shalei lishtabik behem ashmis bizayin, preferably not to use it for a disrespectful thing. She'ein kavod l'mitzvah she'avar, being it's not proper that this thing was used for a mitzvah, to use it now for something disrespectful is not correct. How much more? I don't have to explain to you. You should not step on them. It should not be disrespectful. So now this is a little difficult because when you have the roll up a mat or things like that, or the bamboo sticks, you put them away in a nice way, it's fine. But what do you do with the branches? And you'll see in the Achrayim, they have, I think the Aruch HaShulchan talks about it also. Just to put it out into the front yard where the garbage will collect it, and go straight to the garbage, it's a minik shel bizayin. So others have the custom that they burn the schach. Whatever greens they had, they burn it. But at least make sure it's not picked up together with the garbage as a minik shel bizayin. That's how it's brought in the Achrayim. That's number one. Let's move over to the Hadassim, because in the Lulav, you don't find clearly a halakha about the Hadassim, about the Lulav. So I'd rather talk about things that are written clearly. In Hilchos Shabbos, in Siman Reish Tzadik Zayin Se'iv, the Alter Rebbe writes, Yesh Ayman, there are those that say, Shemitzvah levarach le'mat Shabbos al Hadassim mitzvah. When you're looking for psalmim for Havdalah, there are those that say it's preferably to use the Hadassim that was done a mitzvah with. Shahayu shenaseh by mitzvah achas, because with these Hadassim, a mitzvah was already done. Yesh lashes by mitzvah acheres. You should use it for another mitzvah. How long will it last for the summon? Says Alter Rebbe, even though it's drying up with time, it's drying up and it doesn't have such a great aroma, it still has enough smell to allow you to make a bracha by a minute sum. However, those that say, it's actually better to make a bracha on other psalmim about the Shabbos. Because over there, the other things that you're using, it really smells good. To hold the Hadassim for a whole year and it's dry, I'd rather find something better smelling to perform the mitzvah of burying of psalmim. That's how the custom is. However, says the Alter Rebbe, it doesn't disqualify, don't just throw the Hadassim away. Still, even though your bracha is going to be on burying or some other smelly thing, good smelling thing, but put the Hadassim mitzvah next to it. The Ariach b'shneihem, and you will smell from both of them to show the chavivus of this item, the Hadassim that a mitzvah was done for. That's the Hadassim. Now the Arabas. The Arabas is a little tricky, because what you find people saying is not necessarily what is actually written. In the regular Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Tov Reish Samach Dalet, which we don't have in the Alter Shulchan Aruch, Tov Reish Samach Dalet Tzif Ches. The Mechaber writes like this: Yesh mi she'emer, now those that say she'ha'ishayna she'balulav. Now I broke it down into two parts: the Ishaynus in the lulav and the Ishaynus of Ishayna Rabba. Because you will soon see there are two issues. There are those that say says the Mechaber, that the Haishina, the Araba in the Lulav, Abal Pisha Nizrika, even though you threw it away, Ain the Soya Allah, you should not step on it, and he's Mitzayim to Hilchot Sittus, what I mentioned before. 2 sifim later, or next sif, Sif Test, comes the Ramah, and the Ramah says, Nagu, which over there he's talking about Haishina Rabbah. Nagu lahatzniya hahaishinas la'afiyas matzos. It is customary to keep the haishinas for baking of matzos. K'dei la'aseis ba mitzvah. The same point, so you should fulfill another mitzvah with it. So we see the Mechaber says that you shouldn't step on it. The Ramah says you should keep it for afiyas and matzos. Now the Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Pesach in Tov Mem Hey Seir Yud Beis says Yesh Noigin. I think you have to be very accurate in what he's writing there. Yesh Noigin. There are those that have the custom, literally for chametz, that when you burn the chametz, you use the araba shechatu oita b'Haishina Rabbah. The arabas that you did for Haishina Rabbah, the 5 clots on the ground, that you do by burning of the chametz. But the shekol davar shenasa by mitzvah achas, because once one mitzvah was done with it, the minute of the being, it's proper to use it for a second mitzvah. That is the araba of the Haishina Rabbah. And then he continues, he says, the yesh noegin, there are those that have another custom, a separate custom. Last place, hesek me'arves the lulav, that they make a fire from the araba of the lulav, the fiha tanner, and the opening of the oven, b'shas hafiyas hamatzos. For the baking of the matzos, you use the araba of the lulav. For the burning of the chametz, you use the araba of the haishinas. Now, others say it's not going to last, or Aruch HaShulchan writes it's not going to last that long, so why wait? Just use it for other sort of fires that are mitzvah, for example, Hadol or Shalem, you get a fire. So if there's any other form of mitzvah that can be done properly, that you could use this arabas in a shorter period of time, and not leave these arabas and might get lost and ruined and disrespected. So others say might as well burn it much quicker, which leads me to the next point, and that is we watch a lot of people that by Haishina Rabbah, after they're done the clapping of Haishinas, they throw it on the Aron HaKodesh, and there's a big discussion. The Munkacher was very against this. Some say it's based on the fact that Shem Zalman Auerbach is tying to different places where it says that the Mizbeach, the Haishina Rabbah, they would walk around the Araba, and it would be thrown onto the Mizbeach. So the Aron Kodesh is our Mizbeach of today. But there's many problems with doing it. First of all, it might be a bizoyin the way it's thrown onto the Aron Kodesh, especially. Second of all, we're very concerned with the kedusha, the tashmish of this Araba. If you know for certain that the shamish will take it off and burn it and do the right way or whatever, then for the tashmish mitzvah, fine. But later in many shuls, what happens is that the collector and the cleaning crew comes later on and just gobbles them all up and throws them to the garbage. So Yotzef Scharabav said, the esrig is another beautiful issue, because the esrig is an issue in Hilchos Birchas Hanenin. As we mentioned before, the hadassin should be used preferably for the summon. The Alter Rebbe in Hilchos Birchas Hanenin Perek Yud Aleph, in 2 seifim discusses the concept of an esrig, regarding the bracha of the summon in general. And why it's in 2 seifim is a very important thing, because the Mishnah Berurah has a whole debate about this. The Alter Rebbe breaks it down into the esrig during the period of time of the doing of the mitzvah, during the Sukkos. That is one issue. And that is perhaps during that time, the esrog is designated for mitzvah. And then not necessarily for smell. And then there's after Sukkos, where esrog could also be used for smell. But the Alter Rebbe seems to be very clear that you could make a bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher nasa reach tov b'peiros, on an esrog. Asher nasa reich tov b'peiros could be made on a esrog. And some people actually have the minhag. You know that it says in Chassidus Svarim that in different places in davening we have in mind Baruch Aleinu, the bracha Baruch Aleinu for have an esrog for the future year. Tu B'Shvat, there are many Chassidus Shekaisim that have the minhag that you actually eat the esrog on Tu B'Shvat. And this is just a quick rundown of as you're putting the things away, how to be careful, how to pack it away in a way of kedusha, and not chas v'shalom in a way of desire. Yes, Shikaya, please join us again next time.